when we do a deal that's large and we bring in other investors, for us to take somebody else's money, I don't take that lightly. And I would lose my personal house before I ever lose a dime from somebody that puts money in with us. For us, we wanted to vertically integrate so that we could have that control. We could have those efficiencies, that we knew that when I tell you, hey, this is the pref that you're going to get, this is what the deal is going to be, like, I have confidence in that. I know this is how it's going to get done.
Welcome to the Going Long Podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. And I am your host, Billy Keels. I am super excited to welcome you back for another conversation. It's going to be absolutely awesome. So stick around. It's going to be cool. Let me go through a couple things really, really quickly. First and foremost, you are part of an amazing community. And I am so happy, this community, this family, the Going Long family, that we continue to move up the charts. And that is thanks largely to the action that you continue to take, not just by sharing the episodes or talking about with your family and friends, but also because you're leaving your honest written reviews as well as ratings. If you've not had a chance to do that yet, just take a couple seconds. We even put like a video here on the Apple Podcast platform specifically, and just listen to today's conversation and just leave an honest written review and rating. It's something that will help. It's going to help you as well because it helps us to attract even more amazing guests that give you more actionable insights. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we continue to get people that are like, hey, listen, I want to check out, I want to binge, I want to listen to all the episodes. Go to billykeels.com and once you get to billykeels.com, just go to the podcast tab. And when you're at the podcast tab, you can click and you can see every single episode. I think there's over 180 some at this point in time whenever we're getting this one out. But you can go there, billykeels.com, go to the podcast tab and check out any single episode, get the show notes, all that kind of stuff. So it's awesome. And lastly, for those of you who are interested in joining us at the Accredited Investor Club, just send me an email to aiclub@billykeels.com. Once again, that's going to come straight to me, aiclub@billykeels.com. And we can get you connected and get you in as part of our community. It's grassroots level, everybody. Don't be shy. Go ahead, send me an email and we'll get you in. Wow. And in today's conversation, really, really quickly. So I want you to get into this. We're going to get into this really, really quickly. But today's guest not only was originally from North Dakota, but has been a fireman for 21 plus years. Amazing, comes from a background, super blue collar background, watched, family members growing up, working jobs. He learned, more time equals more money. He took a lot of those life lessons. And he also had the wherewithal to keep his eyes open, was recognizing like, hey, listen, I've got a big why, which is my family. I want to spend more time with my wife, with my kids. And if I'm working more hours, it means I'm not going to be able to get to the things that I really want to do, which is spend time with my family. So he was fortunate enough to figure out a way to decouple his time from his earnings. He's going to tell you a lot more about that. He's going to tell you what it was like in terms of being able to build his company, how they're starting to scale and expand, and doing this all in this amazing state that you should hear more about. Like, he's going to tell you more about it. So in just a couple seconds, you're going to get a chance to meet and hear more from Seth Teagle of the Stream Group. So it's going to be a great conversation. We're going to get to that just after this. Are you looking for a way to get to long distance investing success, but not spending all the effort? You want to do it in a way that's much faster and it doesn't cause as much pain? Well, listen, I can save you all of that stress. Just go to billykeels.com/7 mistakes and you can pick up your free PDF to help you on your road to long distance investing success. So if you've ever wanted to know how vertical integration can actually be a fast stream to your long distance investing success, then guess what? Today's a conversation that you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. I promise, because you know what? Listen, today's guest is absolutely amazing. It's like he started his education in the state of Iowa, but he's from a different state. And I'm sure he's going to tell us a little bit more about that. And that's really cool because we love that here at the Going Long Podcast. He also spent over 20 plus years serving his community as a firefighter. And then after doing that for a while, he also decided, well, you know what? I want to become the principal of a company called the Stream Group, which is a vertically integrated real estate company. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation, Mr. Seth Teagle. Seth, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Great to be here.
Look, I'm so excited about this conversation with you. I get all tongue-tied here and stuff like that. So this is a lot of fun. I appreciated the pre-conversation, and I know that the Going Long family is going to learn so much from you today. So, Seth, as you know, man, I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You're going to get 2 in the beginning, you're going to get 3 in the end, and then, as I already told you, I have no idea what I'm going to ask you in the beginning. But whatever it is, I'm sure it's going to add loads and loads of value to the Going Long family. So I kind of want to get started with the conversation as long as you're ready to go.
Yep, I'm ready.
All right, you were born ready. I'm ready to go. Let's talk. So here we go. First and foremost, I would love for you to help us understand, where is it that you actually live in the United States?
So right now I live in Granville, Ohio, which is kind of a suburb of Columbus, Ohio, and I work and do, I operate basically Central Ohio is what I call it. So yeah, the Columbus, Ohio market is our core market that we're, I guess, metro area that most people would recognize.
All right, fantastic. So I'm going to go out on a limb here, because normally anytime that I actually have anyone from the state of Ohio or is from the state of Ohio or lives in the state of Ohio, there's kind of this greeting that happens. And if you've been there long enough, you've probably heard this already. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, Seth, OH.
IO.
There you go. Fantastic. You've been there long enough. Right on. Perfect. So appreciate that. And then the next thing we want to know, Seth, what is the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours?
The most positive thing is we got a signed LOI on a 148 acre development that we're working on. So we got that last night. So it was pretty exciting.
All right, man. Fantastic. I would expect your the smile to be like from ear to ear. There we go. That's what we're looking for. So anybody, just in case you're not watching the video version, check the smile out. It was awesome from Seth ear to ear. So congratulations on that. And thank you so much for sharing that positivity with us this morning. So other thing, Seth, the thing is, like, the Going Long family, they know that I try to do things that are really impossible, kind of like telling your entire backstory in 2.5 seconds. Never going to happen, right? So it's just like this impossible task. So they always forgive me. So hopefully you'll forgive me, but more importantly, that you will help me. And if you could do us a favor, meaning me and the entire Going Long family, if you could share your backstory in your own words, and also too, as you start to tell us the story, if you could think about some of the major decision points that you made to get to this point in your journey, and then we'll see where the conversation goes from there.
Yeah. So, I'll keep it brief. I was born and raised in North Dakota. I lived about an hour south of Canada, in Minot, North Dakota, which is, if anybody that listens that's from the military, they might recognize that because it's a big Air Force base community. I moved to Florida in 2000 and I got into the fire. I was in college and the fire service. I kind of got into that back in 2000, a little bit 2001 era. And I've did that for 21 years now. And I got into real estate probably 7 or 8 years ago. And I really, what got me into it was that I was starting to have kids, had a family, was realizing that the job that I was having, the only way that I was making money was more hours of me working. And it was just really taking away from what my why is, which is my family, my kids, that's really what drives me. And so freeing up my time, I was like, how do I do that? And so that really, I kind of reconnected with a friend of mine who had gotten into real estate back when I got in the fire service. And when we reconnected, he was just this huge investor, house flipper, hard money lender, had a whole educational program. And I was just blown away by that. And so that really kind of made me think, like, this is really something I should take a look at. And through the talking with him and kind of getting some mentorship early on from him, I found Bigger Pockets. I found a bunch of other podcasts, started learning and educating myself, doing a lot of book reading. And then I connected with a local guy here in Columbus that was house flipping. And, that was like the first person that I had that was in real estate, that was like in real life. And I was clung to him and was like, what can I do to help you? And when we were talking, what I heard was that he needed somebody that could do property management and project management. Well, being in the fire service, I had a great construction background. I had building construction, all this knowledge, inspecting, and I knew the building code, the fire code, all that kind of stuff. And so I was like, look, I work 24 hours on, I have 2 days off. I'll work for you and I'll do it for free. Just teach me what you know, or let me see what you know. Let me ask questions. And I did that for about a year, property management and the project management, before I bought my first property. And it was a 50 unit that I bought with one other investor. And it was kind of a JV / syndication. And probably should have been a syndication because he was more of a passive role. I mean, he came up and did some things, but he lived in another state and just believed in me, believed in the idea of multifamily and going bigger. And we bought it. And that was the first deal that I ever had. And it went great. And here we are.
So that's fantastic, man. There's a lot of different ways I want to take this conversation, but I want to go back to the very beginning, because the first question I have for you is when you said that your why is your family, I guess from thinking about, you said your why is your family, but you also recognized early on that you had to make more hours to make more income,
Mm-hmm.
right? But was there something that you weren't liking in your role from a firefighting perspective that was keeping you from actually being able to live out your why with your family?
Well, no, I think it's just that I came from I would consider a blue collar background where, everything had to be done by me. If your car needs its oil changed, I do it. If something happens in the house that needs to be fixed, I do it. If, we want to buy a house, I need to build a deck on it, I'm going to build it. You know what I mean? That was kind of the mentality that I had. And so, that really limits you on what your productivity can be, because you're only relying, if it's going to get done, it's only on me. And so I was running out of time. I was at the firehouse for 24 hours. And then at that time, the only way I knew to make more money was do what I specialize in. And so I would go ride, I'd go to a firehouse for one day, I'd go ride a medic somewhere else for another 24 hours or 12 hours. And again, just earn that hourly income. And as my life expanded, I got married, I started having kids, inflation goes up, your dollar's not worth as much today as it was yesterday. I found myself just having to work more and more and more in order to maintain the lifestyle that we wanted. And we were not anything super crazy or extravagant, but it was, I found myself spending more and more time away from my family to provide for my family. And I'm like, something here's got to change, because I can't continue to kind of stay on the path, right? I mean, I was in my 20s, into my 30s, I'm like, this is, I'm good now, but what happens in 10 years? Or what happens in 15 years when, maybe my body's breaking down and I'm, because it's a lot of physical work that we do. And so, what do I do? Right. And then I watched my parents get older, and they both have worked into their 70s, and they both basically they stopped working. They had no income. And I did not want to be in that position when I got to their age. So it really drove me to look for a better option.
Yeah. And so as you start to look for the better options, right, and you're living these types of things via proximity, and this actually, because I'm sure that a lot of people, as they're like listening to this or they're cooking dinner or whatever they're doing, they're thinking, wow, I can resonate with a lot of things Seth's saying. But when you were talking about, if you had to do something, you had to do it, whether it was putting a deck on the house or it was doing a particular job. Is that more because no one could do it as well as you could do it, or because if somebody else did it, you would be paying them to do it? Or was it both, or a combination of the two, or none of the above?
Yeah, I think it's probably a little of both, right? I mean, if you know how to do something and then you ask somebody to come give you a bid, and they're like, hey, it's $20,000 to do this deck. And you're like, what? I could do it for $8,000, with material. Like, it's hard. That was a hard pill for me to swallow back then. And then too, I think in my mind too, the value of my time, I had always been, the value is always, my time was placed by an employer. Yeah. And, what I've realized through all this is that really even comes down to mowing the grass, right? Like I think in the last year, I started paying somebody to mow my grass, and that was so hard for me to let go of just that simple thing. But it's like, that hour and a half it takes me to do yard work, what can I be doing in that hour and a half to generate more revenue for my why? And so that was something I had to let go. So I think it's a little both. I mean, I'm kind of like, I wouldn't say perfectionist, but when you know how to do something, no matter what your line of work is, when you are like asking somebody else to come in and do that thing, you can be more critical, or you're like, oh, that's not how I would do it. So it's sometimes hard for us to let those things go.
Yeah, I'm only laughing because I'm a recovering perfectionist, Seth, and most of the Going Long family knows this, and it's a struggle. And the reason I asked that is because I used to think, well, nobody's going to do this job as well as I'm going to do it. And the same thing, your example was perfect. Like, oh, it's going to cost $20,000. I can do it for 10, or I can get 2 or 3 people to do it for whatever. Yeah. And at the end of the day, and I want the Going Long family, I want you to actually hear what Seth is saying, because he is talking about how do you put value on your time. It's like when I would speak to people and when I was working in corporate life before I finished that, and people would say, well, I'm worth so much more. I'm like, well, yeah, you are, but the company that you work for only values this role for this amount of money. So it doesn't really matter. And it's the same thing on your time. And sometimes it's about how can you generate more revenue for your family or whatever. But sometimes it's just, you're not going to generate revenue and you're just going to play with the kids. Like I was playing video games the other day and I generated no revenue, but it was like in my emotional bank, it was like full. So it was just really, really awesome. So you saw this guy, just going to go back to the story you were telling before. So you saw the guy who was in real estate and he was flipping and he was hard money lending and he was educating and things like that. But like, I come from a very, lower middle class family, blue collar. Both parents worked really, really hard. I resonate with a lot of things that you're saying. And, it was, how do I work more jobs, get more hours and make more money? But was there something particular about real estate that you had been exposed to early on that really had you gravitate towards this person, or was it something else?
I think that it was just the lives I had seen changed were through real estate. Most successful people that I knew or was around had dabbled in real estate. Maybe they were a professional that, it was a high income earner, but they always either had some rentals on the side or they kind of dabbled in it. Right. And then my stepdad, he was actually a pastor when my mom met him. And then he always had rentals as like a side hustle from doing that. And so, and it's at one point he was no longer a pastor and he was just doing real estate full time. And so when I was younger, I didn't really understand what he was doing. And then when I got to be older and I kind of got the spark, or I got the fire lit, I read the Rich Dad Poor Dad and that changed my world. When I kind of understood what he was doing, I'm like, let's talk, and so then that really helped too, because I could just see how, he was working for himself and doing, again, he was kind of like a quote unquote mom and pop owner where he was, managing, renovating, buying, and he had a small little portfolio, but it was good. It paid him enough to where they could live comfortably. And I'm like, man, I really just, that was eye-opening for me. So it's kind of like all these things kind of came together. And I thought this is really, and I think too, like podcasts and listening to other people's stories was, maybe, like he says 20 years ago when he was doing real estate, there were no podcasts, there was no YouTube, there was nothing, and so now it's like you can be exposed to so many more people and stories. And, that's really kind of what showed me that the path to success or what I wanted was going to be through real estate.
And so having this clarity, having that and proximity, but not literally right in your face, but it was nearby. And so you were observant enough to say, okay, well, this is happening over here. Let me find out a little bit more about what this is about. So you were kind of tasting that environment. But then you also did something what I consider to be an extremely bold move. You recognized what you had, and then you knew where you wanted to go, which was towards this real estate thing. And I think when you were saying earlier, you'd mentioned that, hey, listen, you have the type of role, the context of your life was you work 2 days and then you're off a day, or 2 days, something like that. But you recognized that you had this free time. And so you went to this person, which is a bold move, because most people are like, I'm not doing anything for free nowadays. You've got to, if you're not paying me, I'm not going to do it. And you made the decision to say, hey, listen, I have time. So how about I give you my time, and in return, you help teach me what's going on. So maybe talk us through a little bit of that, because I think for some people that could feel a little bit foreign, and at the same time, it's helped you to advance and get closer to your goals.
Yeah. So what I recognized was, and again, a lot of it, I heard it on podcasts and I think people were saying was getting that first deal done is like the biggest thing, and getting a large multifamily deal done can be hard. And what you really need, you can flip houses and you can have small multifamily or even single family, but to get into the apartment space, into larger deals, you really have to have some kind of resume. And I did not know, I didn't have a whole lot of money. I had some money saved, but not enough that I felt would really make an impact. And I didn't want to go the single family flipping route, because to me, I felt like that was like super, like a lot more risky than multifamily, right? The more units I can get under one roof, the safer I am, the safer the investment is, because the risk is then spread out over more tenants. And so I was like, how do I get there? And how I saw it was, let me learn from this guy and build kind of a resume. So when I do go to a lender and I say, hey, I want to try to get this deal, like my first big deal, I had some actual experience to speak on, some actual like real time, hard facts that I can say, look, here's what I've done. So I worked, I mean, and it wasn't fun. I mean, I worked for the whole year. I mean, I remember being, doing the projects, but doing the property management. I was meeting vendors. I was, dealing with tenants, showing apartments. People wouldn't show up. I mean, it was not a fun time, but I knew that this was the only way for me to get to where I wanted to go. And, that really, like I said, when I went in to get my first loan, I was told by 5 different banks, hey, you look great. Your resume looks great. The deal looks great, but we just don't, like, you've never owned that. And so, I was actually finally able to find a lender that would lend on the experience I had. But had I not, kind of given up that year or that time, I wouldn't have been able to get that first deal done. And that, like I said, that was kind of the catalyst, I guess, to how we've exploded and how we're continuing to grow and all these other things. So it was well worth it.
So, and we're going to get to the kind of that explosion and how things are happening right now. But I'm also too, because I'm super sensitive to what you just explained. Like you were talking about going through the tenants and people not showing up and all that kind of stuff. I was trying to do that from Barcelona, Spain, and it was just like, well, and so that kind of makes you're making me relive a bunch of stuff. Wow, don't you just love this conversation? This is amazing. This is fantastic. And so just really quickly, I just wanted to remind you, for those of you that are looking to create more options for yourself, get there faster, and do that with long distance investing, make sure that you go to billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid so that you can avoid all those mistakes, get to your goals faster and sooner. Once again, that's billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid. Now back to the conversation. Seth, how did that experience of that year where you were really face to face with everything that was going on, how has that helped you as you look at your business today and as it's starting to grow and explode, as you mentioned before?
It's really helped me understand that, like, it gave me the first exposure, I guess, to like why I feel like it's important for us in Central Ohio, at least the stuff we have here, to bring things in-house. Because when you're depending on people that you're not, I guess the way that we look at it is when we like bring in somebody in-house, like when we hire construction guys or we hire people to work on the management team, we're able to really explain and kind of impress our vision on them. And they either they buy in or they don't. And if they don't, then they don't, they don't, and it's no hard feelings. They don't stick around. They're not a good fit, but we want players that buy into the vision that we have and what we're trying to do. And I just feel like we became so much more efficient, and everything just seemed to work better. And I learned that in that year because I was dealing with so many just random people that, they're all for profit. They're all for themselves, and again, everybody in the business world, if you're a contractor, right, maybe you start a project and you're like, hey, this isn't, this is only a $2,000 job, but I just got asked to come over here and do this other job and I can make 10,000 over here. So then they don't show back up again. And so now they're mid project, and, you as a investor, like, what are you going to do? Like, who are you going to call now? And then you're trying to get people to come, and everybody's busy. And, with COVID and the labor shortage, like all those things, I learned that back then dealing with that, having that experience I just knew that in order for me to have the time freedom that I wanted with my family, I had to go big enough to where we could hire people and kind of oversee those things and hire the right people, I guess, to have them at the table with us to, run the day to day.
Yeah. And so when you do have that, and I want you to tell us a little bit more about the vertical integration, or as you call it, in-house or vertically integrated stack. Because I know that we've talked about it. Some people, or they may be listening for the first time, and you're saying, okay, bring it in-house. Well, what do you mean? And so talk to us about what that means when you say I'm saying a vertically integrated stack. You're saying in-house. It's the same thing, but just talk to us a little bit more about what that means, and then and versus what you had before, as you were talking about, hey, you try to get this person and that person.
Yeah, so vertically integrated or in-house, it simply just means that we have about 600 units that are in Central Ohio, and we self-manage 90% of those units. So we have a management staff. We have created a management company, and then we've got about 4 office people that handle all of our tenants, leasing, showing all of that stuff. And then we have a large maintenance and construction staff. And so because of the issues we were running into with no-shows, quality of work, just different things that we were having trouble with. It was kind of like a bottleneck in the business of, dealing with people from the outside. So we said, let's bring in these people. And yeah, it's a little bit more work to employ them. It's a little bit more, now you're an employer, you're not just an investor, but the outcome and the efficiencies we were able to build out are much better for us. They're much better for people that invest with us. And so it's really kind of like the best bang for your buck is going vertical for us. And now we have equity holdings and stuff that's all over the country that I don't oversee. I call and I talk to somebody else like me who oversees it in another state or whatnot. And so, we have a kind of both going on, but our market in Central Ohio has been so good that it's kind of like, let's go deep here. And rather than, I'm not forced to have to go outside of Ohio. And so, it's just great that I live in an area where that's obtainable.
And this is me completely showing my bias, but this is one of the reasons that the great state of Ohio is a great state, because there's lots and lots of opportunity there. So, so a couple of things, I guess, if I kind of needed to just bring it down to two words, it sounds like I love the fact that you also mentioned, like, this is the right thing for you. And it really comes down to the company culture that you are building and the ability to have higher levels of control when you are bringing things in-house and bringing things into a vertically integrated model. Would that whole culture, being able to establish the culture and having a much higher level of control, does that resonate with you? Does that seem on the mark, or?
Yeah. So I think for me, like 100%. And I think really for me, it comes from when we do a deal that's large and we bring in other investors, for us to take somebody else's money, I don't take that lightly. And I would lose my personal house before I ever lose a dime from somebody that puts money in with us. And that's why it's like, for us, we wanted to vertically integrate so that we could have that control. We could have those efficiencies, that we knew that when I tell you, hey, this is the pref that you're going to get, this is what the deal is going to be, like, I have confidence in that. I know this is how it's going to get done, because a lot of people will, they can buy an apartment building, right? But the real work starts after you buy it. And I didn't want to rely on, because we had done third-party management, and not all third-party managers are bad, but they're, when you're buying something that's kind of between that 20 to 100 units, you're kind of it's a different type of management company that you deal with. And so again, they're a for-profit company, and a lot of them we would find were not aligned with our interests. They were out for them, we're out for us and the investors, and sometimes that would clash. And so it just made sense for us to bring things in house so we could guarantee, when we could kind of guarantee what we're saying better.
Yeah, exactly. So I love the way that you talk about that, and the way that you verbalize that, right? Because it really is about having more control and being able to do that. And of course, you mentioned something, my ears went, woo, especially being here with long distance investing, right? We love being able to help people feel much more comfortable and confident. You mentioned that you have higher control where you are, but you also, I believe you said that you also have equity in places that are across the country. So this goes back to there's really two things here. Number one, I'm always interested, because most of the books, Seth, and you know them because you read them, and you've listened to a lot of podcasts, and a lot of them say, hey, listen, you should only buy in your backyard. You have a company that is vertically integrated, and you all are experts in the Central Ohio region. And I think that that's phenomenal. But at the same time, it sounds like you made a decision to also invest in other places. And there are also people that are watching us now, they're listening to us, and they probably live in different states or different countries. And they're thinking, I've heard a lot about Ohio. Every time Billy talks about Ohio, he gets this smile on his face, Seth smiling in his face. So talk to us about those people, either yourself or others that are thinking, wow, I want to know a little bit more about this long distance investing thing. I want to hear more about what Seth's talking about, what's happening in Central Ohio. Why would you even think about doing that?
So I guess a couple of things. So long distance investing for me was super scary in the beginning. But then I heard somebody say one time that, you're betting more on the jockey and not the horse. And so that kind of resonated with me, where I'm like, you know what, you're right. So when I meet for me, it's it's a personal vetting process where I have to feel comfortable with the operator. I have to feel comfortable, and they don't have to have 20 deals under their belt either. I mean, if I meet the person and I'm like, they operate with integrity, I know that they're going to do everything that they have to do to make the deal successful. Like, I don't have a problem in maybe like signing on the debt, or, one of us within the company that we like, hey, we got an opportunity over here. The great part about it is maybe I don't want to do it, but one of the other guys does, and so they'll do it. We keep our ability to kind of choose what we want to kind of get into. But then in Central Ohio, we like this market because Columbus is just booming. I mean, it's the deficit of apartments or places for people to live. I mean, I think there was like a 50 or 60,000 person deficit for more people than houses prior to COVID. And then COVID came and it just slowed everything down. The labor was almost disappeared, the material. And so it made that gap even worse, which is why like the housing market here and the pricing of per door costs has gone through the roof in the metro area, which again has forced us to, we look out in like some of the tertiary areas as well. And we do very, very well out in those areas, but it's, there's just so many different things going on in Ohio. Intel's coming now with a new plant it's like the largest the state's ever had. It's $20 billion that they're investing in, like initially. And just that alone is going to continue to raise the bar here in Central Ohio and make these towns and cities that maybe were not looked at before because they were kind of anchor cities, was what I'd call them. They're going to, there's nowhere else for people to live. Like they're going to, and all the different industries that are going to come in to support that Intel plant alone will, and that's just one thing. I mean, there's multiple things going on like that in Central Ohio. So, it's a great area for us. And, that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. So, and so coming back to what you mentioned before, it's really about understanding who is the team that is going to actually be managing the asset, the day-to-day operations, and whether you are in Central Ohio, and you're going to tell us a little bit more about what you all are doing at Stream Group, or you're investing with someone who is in a different location. It's really about understanding how that team interacts and understands the specific location that they're in, the specific asset that they're going to be operating on a day-to-day basis, and things like that. You've also helped us to understand some of the other criteria that we hear a lot about in terms of migration, whether it's more people than places, or more people going to a specific place than leaving, or also to things like the availability of housing and how that could also create specific opportunities for investors, as well as for those that are looking to move in or specifically into a city. So I think those are some of the things that I really want the Going Long family to keep in mind. And also, one of the other things that I did want to ask you, because you're mentioning a lot, and I know a lot of the Going Long family is thinking, okay, well, yeah, Seth's talking more about this, what's happening in Columbus and then in the surrounding areas and stuff like that. And I know he has this company, but tell us a little bit more about some of the keys that you see as absolutely crucial to building a strong team to serve a specific location, and some of the things that you've gone through yourself to build that A team.
Yeah. So, I think that the big thing is, one is can I trust the people that we're employing, and I really don't look at it as even employing people. I look at it as, team members and like, will they be a good fit for the team? Because that's one thing that's super important for us is do they buy into the culture that we have? Do they buy into the belief system that they have? And are they going to work hard to achieve that? And so that's kind of like what we look at when we're looking to hire somebody. And we like having, local people in the areas that we're buying in, because they know the market even more on a granular level than we do. If I go to somewhere that's an hour north or east or west of Columbus, I can look at it on a macro level like everybody else does, and even some of the areas we buy in, maybe, if you're in Spain and you're looking at macro level at like Mansfield, Ohio, you're like, man, I would never buy there, like for these reasons. But then you call and you talk to me and I'm like, look, that's what it shows you on the internet, right? But here's the things you're not seeing that are actually going on in that community. Yeah. And, we're in the meetings with city council, we're in the meetings with the different leaders, and here's what we know is coming. And so that's helped us. So I like that, we employ local people. We are, try to get on like a cellular granular level on the markets that we're in. And I think, overall, like I said, people that just buy into our vision, we have kind of a mantra, if you will. And if like I said, you either fit in it or you don't. And, we don't compromise that. So.
That's part of creating the company culture, right? It's or whatever culture, whether it's company culture, household culture, whatever the thing is you've got to make sure that that what you want to be able to do is going to be able to be achieved through your team and done in a way that is efficient. And so it makes a lot of sense. And I guess just maybe also talk to us a little bit about how you are working with investors today, like some of the people we talked about the team aspect and how you're controlling and building team, and maybe talk to us a little bit about the investor aspect, because that's also something that you do in your model.
Yeah, so we do most of the stuff that we've done to date have been 506Bs. Mainly because we just have a great network of people that we've have either known through networking or knew prior to kind of like growing this company. They're seeing the results and the things that we're doing, and they want to get involved. And then, we haven't had to do a 506C. Obviously, in a 506B, you can take accredited investors as well, and we have those that we work with, all the time. And that's really, like I said, for us is we kind of create this like family feel where it's not just like a business transaction, and that's something that I value a lot. Where if if you got questions about a property, like I take phone calls all the time. I do, like I said, that's really like what I love doing is dealing with the investors directly, and I think a lot of them what makes us successful is that they don't feel like it's just you're out for my money, or you take my money, I invest, and hey, I'll just get an email from you once a quarter or whatever. That's we value that a lot. We've looked at doing a fund this year. We've looked at doing some 506Cs if we need to, but like right now with the success we've had, we haven't had to just make it exclusive for just accredited investors only. So.
Yeah, and this is one of the other things that I love about being able to syndicate is being able to say, hey, listen, you know what? If maybe this is something that I want to be able to do with family and friends, and so that is an option, and maybe and that has a certain feel, and then there are other fields that it may feel very like almost institutional, but there's really something to be said. I mean, it's one of the things I get from my investors all the time as well. It's like when they pick up a phone call or they send you a WhatsApp or whatever, that you're actually available and you can speak to them the next day. It's not like, hey, hang on a second, let me find a time and it's 6 weeks out, and because I'm on 18 other raises and stuff like that. So there's definitely something to be said with proximity and being able to be available to speak to your investors. So that's phenomenal. So I appreciate you doing that. And you know what, Seth, here's the thing, like we kind of have to get into the going long final three. But the thing is, I never ask any of our guests, and today you are our special guest, the going long final three, unless you tell me that you're ready. So are you ready? I'm ready. All right. You were born ready, man. Here we go. So Seth, listen, we started with you on that side of the pond over there in Granville, Ohio. And I'd like to bring it back now to this side, although Ohio is my home state. Everybody knows that already. I make it pretty obvious. But now Spain and Europe is my home, my adopted continent. So I'd like to bring it back on this side of the Atlantic. So help us understand, what is your favorite European city that you've either visited or is still on your bucket list to visit? So I have, never been to Europe. I'll put that out there. Not yet. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I have not made the venture yet. But I think that for me, the favorite city or area that I would go to is probably Berlin. And the reason why, I have a lot of German in my family history, and my family name actually was von Teagle when they came to the U.S., and they changed it to Teagle when they got here because of it was kind of like during the World War II, the Nazi era, and it was kind of like a stigma. And so I'm actually in my office, I have the family crest from that my dad had made back when in the 80s that has the von Teagle on there, and that was something that was my aunt has done a lot of family research and kind of gone back into the areas of Europe that we were originally from. And so for me, just never seeing it, I'd really love to kind of come out that way and just experience that culture. My uncle's gone out to Germany and he just really loved it. And so I think if I was going to pick one spot to start, that I would probably go to Berlin in the Germany area. Yeah, Berlin is a fantastic place. Been there many times. I used to work for a German software company, really big. And so I spent a lot of time in Germany, from up north and down south and east and west and all that kind of stuff. So awesome. So another vote for Berlin, fantastic city. Definitely go in the summertime. It would be my high recommendation. So listen, so on to question number 2, which has a lot to do with what I've seen as someone who I consider myself very fortunate because I've been able to interact with lots of people that are very successful, Seth. And I consider you to to be someone very successful because you have, well, you've been able to impact lives, everything from firefighting to being clear on your why and building a business that is helping to impact people's lives extremely positively. And so, one of the things that I've also recognized with other successful people is one of the main reasons that they're successful is because they, unlike most people, when they do something, they get it right the first time. And so then that allows them to, hang on a second. I think I did that all wrong. No, it's a joke. It's a joke. Don't worry, Seth. It's an inside joke with me and the Going Long family. They are all aware of it. You were just now nice into it, and you were very kind. You didn't say anything. You kept a straight face. It was awesome. Check him out on YouTube, everybody. He kept a very straight face. No, so here's the thing. Kind of a joke. Nobody does things perfectly the first time, or at least no one that I've ever met. And the reality is that people that are very successful, Seth, and hopefully you agree. This is no joke. The first one was kind of a joke. This is not a joke. Successful people, they make a lot more mistakes than most people, like a whole lot more, way more, probably 20, 30, 40 times more. But the one thing that they do very, very differently that I've seen is that every time there is a very relevant mistake that was made, without a doubt, every single time they stop, they learn from the mistake. And then very soon thereafter, they put different strategies, tactics, and actions in place to minimize the probability of that exact same thing happening again in the future. So I don't necessarily want you to share the mistake or the learning opportunity or however you want to call it, but what is the one lesson that you know that the Going Long family needs to know today to minimize the probability of something happening in the future that you could help them minimize the probability of it happening? What's that one lesson we need to know today?
I think that the one thing that I would say is like, don't be afraid to pay for a mentor. If you're going to be an active investor, or even if you're going to be a passive investor, there's different channels for either side. But being in an active investor role, don't be afraid to pay somebody for their time because what you'll learn from talking with that person or meeting with that person, it really can help you sidestep some landmines in your real estate investing journey that could cost you thousands of dollars. And then even on the passive investing side, like if you're trying to get into passive investing and you don't know anybody else doing it, there's podcasts out there that are designed for passive investing only. And I think that's, the worst thing you want to do as a passive investor is invest with the wrong person or the wrong sponsor, and then lose that the money that you've worked hard for. So I think either way is like, educate yourself, but also like look for somebody that you can learn from. And if you have to pay them for their time, like do it, because the ROI on that investment is going to be tremendous.
Oh yeah. So don't be afraid to pay for mentorship. Appreciate you sharing that. And the lessons are, like we could go on and on. Many times those relationships the return on them is infinite. So, I can only say, yes, I appreciate you sharing that with us, Seth. So here's a third of the Going Long final three. And so just to kind of wrap things up, help us understand, you've mentioned a couple books already, but I always like to leave everyone with being able to feed our minds with new knowledge. So what's the one book that you would recommend to the Going Long family today?
It's hard to pick from, but I think the one that's probably been the most impactful for me over the last 3 or 4 years has been Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. If you've never heard of it or read it, it really it almost allowed me to give myself the permission to let go of some of these things, like I talked about before, like cutting the grass or building the deck or doing these things that I thought I was the only one that was, the best use of my time was doing that. And it really just, I don't know, it clicked something inside my brain where I was able to, it doesn't make me less of a man or less of a person by not doing certain things. It gives me the freedom to spend my time doing something that, might be more valuable or, like you said, even just playing with your kids, right? If I've worked hard all week and now I'm home on the weekend, my time is better spent with my kids at the pool or my kids, taking them out to do things and enjoying that time with them rather than coming home and slaving away all weekend to do some of the things around the house that, I had always been trained that was what you do.
Yep. Oh yeah. Absolutely love it. Who Not How. Mr. Sullivan is he's been read a couple of times in my household as well. So, and when you talked about the mowing the lawn earlier, that was one of the first things that actually went into my mind. So, listen, so, it's amazing that I think about how quickly these conversations, like they literally fly by. And I'm thinking about from the very beginning, and you're talking about, being from North Dakota, and then from there you start education in Iowa, and then you're in Florida, and then you serving communities as a firefighter. And then from there you're recognizing, like, I don't want to keep just like my real why is my family, and I want to spend more time with them. And the only way for me to continue to do that is work more hours. But if I work more hours, I can actually spend more time with my family. So there's this kind of disconnect from what's going on. And then you had kind of paid attention to some of the things that were happening in the proximity of your life. And your stepfather, I believe you said, who was also a pastor, and then went to become full-time investor, and you saw what was there, and you had this natural curiosity. Then, well, that was kind of happening. And then eventually you said, hey, listen, I've got this really cool work context. And so why don't I give the time that I have, because that's something I can use, to even upscale and go with someone that I've seen who is not only in the private lending, but, helping on putting larger deals together and flipping and all this type of education and knowledge. And well, you gave your time. And in return, you gain lots and lots of knowledge. You put that knowledge into practice, and you have since gone on to establish your own company. You're building your own culture. You've recognized that being able to have a vertically integrated company is the way forward for you to maintain control, maintain efficiencies, and more importantly, foster the positive culture that you want to continue to do and attract the investors that you're looking to attract. And so doing all of this in, the Central Ohio. And so I know that there's so many people that are part of the Going Long family that are listening, thinking, wow, Seth, man, this guy is amazing. It sounds like he's got this whole awesome thing going on. I want to find out more about him, more about what they're doing at the Stream Group. So help us understand, Seth, what is the best way for the Going Long family to contact you or your team at the Stream Group?
So they can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn. Just look up my name, Seth Teagle. We're on Instagram as well. We've got a Facebook. The Stream Group has a Facebook page. They can like that and get more information and see things that we're doing. And then probably the other best way is our website. It's www.thestreamgroups.com. And it's the Stream Groups is plural because we are vertically integrated. So it's, we got several different groups that are going on in there. But you can go on there and fill out a questionnaire, like a form, to get more information, and that comes right to me. And then I'll probably follow up with you within a couple of days and email you back, and then we'll get the conversation started. That's usually the easiest way.
All right, fantastic. So head over to the Stream Groups with an S at the end.com. Also, to Going Long family, you already know this, but I'm going to say it. When you reach out to Seth, because you will reach out to him on LinkedIn specifically, make sure that you let him know that you heard him or watched him here at the Going Long podcast with Billy Keels. It's going to help the two of you continue the conversation, give you some more context so that you can, just continue the conversation. So with that, listen, I really want to say thanks so much, Seth, from the bottom of my heart, for you investing your time with me and the entire Going Long family, man. Thank you so very much. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
All right, perfect. Give me just 10 seconds. I just want to wrap up with the Going Long family really quickly. Listen, Seth left so much knowledge, so much actionable insight today. Definitely take a couple seconds. Make sure that you're putting into action the things that he talked about. Make sure you're sharing today's conversation. You know somebody that really needs to hear today's conversation. So go ahead, just do the share button. You'll be fine. I know in the meantime, while you're out putting all this new knowledge into action, I'm really looking forward to welcoming you back on the very next conversation. So until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much. Wow. Don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? When I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me a really simple list of things to follow so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode, so go out and make it a great day.